Okay, students, dear students, in today's class, we'll learn one more experiment, one more skill experiment, that is experiment 9. Explore Azure service for open source database. So we're going to learn about how to create a open source database in Azure portal, in Azure cloud, right? So before that, what is an open source? First of all, open source is nothing but it is a free software developed by some group of developers. It refers to open source refers to a software or a technology, okay, whose source code is made publicly available, which allows us to view, modify, distribute, and use it freely without paying a single rupee. Okay, that's the main use of open source software. So, if you look at the examples of open source software, when it comes to the operating systems, the Linux, Ubuntu, so on, these are open source operating systems. When it comes to the databases, MySQL and PostgreSQL, MongoDB, these are open source database. Some of the few open source uh, databases are available in the market. Okay, we can freely use these databases without paying anything. That is the main advantage of open source databases, right? Like that, we can see the programming languages, web browsers, and office suites. Okay, so these are some of the key features of open source databases. It is free to use, as I have said before, and also customizable. You can modify the source code. It allows us to modify the source code also according to our needs. And it is a company, and it is a community driven, means it was developed by some set of developers, formed as a group instead of developed by a single company. Okay, so any open source database is a platform independence. It will work on Linux, Windows, and Mac OS as well. Okay, we can add our enhanced features to the existing open source softwares. Okay, so this is a brief introduction about what is an open source and open source databases. So let us go into the actual practical thing, that is experiment 9. So in this experiment, what we're going to do is we're going to create the experiment is asking us to do is, so create any open source database in Azure and do some CRUD operations. If you see the first question, second part, so we have to create any SQL, any open source database, whether it is a MySQL or a Postgres, and perform some basic CRUD operations like creating a table, inserting sample data, or retrieving the data from the table, updating and deleting, so on. Okay, so we'll do this experiment now. For that, we'll do this experiment now. For that, go to the Azure portal. So in the search bar, please type portal.azure.com. For that, you require is a student account subscription, which gives you $100 as credit. So as you are using the services, the dollars are going to decrease. So I request, when you are using a student account, once you learn any service, you have to delete that service. Okay, don't keep it in the Azure portal. Now, so we're going to create MySQL database and also Postgres SQL database. Okay, so how to create that is, in the search bar, please type Azure databases. See, if you see here, Azure databases for MySQL servers. Azure database for Azure database for MySQL servers, and also you can see Azure database for MySQL flexible servers. There are two options are there to create a MySQL database. There are two options are there. One is MySQL servers, and second one is MySQL flexible servers. What is the difference between these two is, flexible servers will have more enhanced features, more additional features when compared to the normal server. Okay, Azure database for MySQL is a single server, whereas the flexible server will contain more features. For example, if you say the availability means, if at all any failure happens to the server, in the single server, you cannot recover the data, right? So, but whereas the flexible server, the data is going to redundant zone wise. The data is, is going to copy at multiple places, right? Like a scaling, we can enhance the features of the existing servers. Networking, when it comes to the networking, the single server supports only public access, whereas flexible server supports public and private access. So, single server used for a best for a simple workloads. It cannot accommodate more complex workloads, but whereas flexible servers will accommodate any type of workloads. When it comes to the pricing, single server is a fixed pricing. Okay, whether you use it the whether you use the service to the full extent or not, you have to pay the price whatever they have fixed. But whereas the flexible server, we can we can pay as use. Okay, as use. So to how much extent you are going to use that service, to that extent only you are going to pay in the flexible servers. Okay, these are the two these are few main differences between MySQL server and MySQL flexible servers. So I will go with the flexible servers. So click on flexible servers. Now click on create. So to create MySQL server, click on create. In the flexible server, just click on quick create. Okay, it will ask you some details. Okay, please enter those details. Give the subscription that you are using. I'm using a student account, so I have selected this one. The resource group, that is, I have given the name as KL Student Learning, KL Stud Learn. So select that. This has to be created before we create this service, that is MySQL database. Okay. Server name. Give a server name of your choice. I will give KL Test MySQL 1. Okay, this is my name I want to give for this. Select the region as Central India. Okay, now Asia Pacific, Central India. Availability zone, no preference. Okay, keep this as it is. Give the username and password here. I want to use like KLadmin as a password, and the password also you have to provide. Okay, once you give the username and password, enable this add firewall rule for current IP address. Okay, select this dev test as it is. Now leave everything as it is by default. Click on review and create. So this will shows you the cost that is going to cost us. The computational cost is 1,400 change, and the storage cost is 217 rupees. Okay. Now click on create. Now the deployment is going to happen. This is going to create a MySQL server in the Azure. Okay. So the deployment is going to take few minutes. We'll wait for that until it completes the deployment. See, now the deployment is completed. Now, once the deployment completes, go to the resource group. Go to the SQL server, MySQL server, where it was created. Okay, this is the Azure database for MySQL server. See here, this is the name of the server name. This is the server name, right? This we have to copy it, because see here, what we do is actually we are going to create these free databases, that is MySQL database and the PostgreSQL database in the Azure portal. Okay, so all the remaining CRUD operations we're going to perform in a separate application called Azure Data Studio. Azure Data Studio. Okay, so we have already completed this experiment. What is Azure Data Studio? How to work with this? If you want, the separate video is available based on Azure Data Studio. The link is given in the description. can go and learn what is Azure Data Studio. Okay, it is a separate application where the MySQL and PostgreSQL does not have a separate query editor. Okay, separate query editor to run these SQL queries in the Azure portal. So we'll use the one more application called Azure Data Studio. Okay, all the CRUD operations will be executed here. Okay, by establishing the connection to these two databases. Okay, so this is what we're going to do now. MySQL database is created. Now the second thing we're going to do is PostgreSQL. So we have to create the second one is PostgreSQL. So go to the portal again. Hmm. One thing we should do in the MySQL database, go to the settings. Once it get deployed, go to the settings, go to the networking. We have to add some public IP address in order to access from the external application, because we are going to access this MySQL database from the Azure Data Studio, right? So we have to add a public IP address. Okay. So here, allow public access from any Azure service within Azure to this server. Okay, enable this and click on IP address. Okay, so the client IP address was created. Click on save. Once you add this IP address, click on save. It's getting updated. So once it get added, now we're going to create another database, that is PostgreSQL. The same process we need to follow, that how we have followed for the MySQL database creation. So same thing we have to follow in order to create the PostgreSQL also. It is taking some time. Now if you see that that was updated successfully. Okay. Now MySQL database is created. The second thing is PostgreSQL database we have to create. So go to the home page again. See now the Azure database for MySQL flexible server was created. So now we will create the PostgreSQL now. So the same process we have to follow. Azure database for Azure database for Postgres SQL flexible server. Okay, so just click here. We have to enter some details here. We have to enter the same details what we have done in case of MySQL server, right? So select the resource group. KL stood learn. Give some server name. Now let me give you KL test Postgres 1. Okay. For MySQL also same I have given KL test MySQL 1. Here Postgres also I am giving KL test Postgres 1. Select the region, that is Central India. Central India. The Postgres version, leave it as it is. Now workload type. So to reduce the cost, please select the development. Okay. Now see here, the cost has been reduced to this much. When it is a production, it is costs around 30,366 rupees, but go with the minimum cost, that is the development purpose. And also select the minimum one. Select the minimum configuration here. So if you want to change the configuration, just click on the configure server. You can go with the different things. Okay, different different configurations like the CPU, memory, and the RAM. We can select here, right? Storage type, storage size, and the performance as it is. Okay, so if you want, you can save that also. Now when it comes to the availability zone, no preference, leave it as it is. No preference. Next one is, leave this one also as it is, high availability. uh, by default it was selected PostgreSQL and Microsoft Enter authentication. Means how we need to log in into this Microsoft how we need to log in into into this PostgreSQL database is by using Microsoft Enter authentication or through username and password. Okay, Microsoft Enter administrator. As you are using this, you have to give your mail ID as an admin. So in which you have logged in into the portal. Please select that. Please select that. So you will become the administrator. Now set admin. Click on select. Here also give the username and password. Let me give KL admin. It was taken. Give the password. Once you have given the password, click on review and create. Okay. If you want, you can check the parameters what you have selected. Okay. Click on create. Now click on create server without firewall rules. Once it get deployed, the same thing we have to do as in case what we have done in case of MySQL. We have to go to the settings, go to the networking, and we need to add a public IP address here also. Okay. Once the deployment completes, we are going to do that one. Let us wait for the deployment to complete. So deployment is completed. Now go to the resource, go to the settings again to give access to the public IP. Click on networking. Okay, it was already selected. Allow public access from any Azure services. Enable this. Okay, click on add IP address. Add current IP address. Okay, this was added. Now we have created two databases now. Sorry, we have to save it. I forgot to save this. Once you add this, click on save button. So once you create two databases in the Azure portal, now we have to open this application that is Azure Data Studio. From this, a connection has to be established in between the Azure Data Studio and the SQL server, MySQL database and PostgreSQL databases. Both things has to do in a separate manner. Okay, so how to do that? It is initializing. It is updating the connection securities. So meanwhile, what we do is open this Azure Data Studio. Once again, that was updated already. Successfully updated. Okay. So here work is completed. Okay. So MySQL database and PostgreSQL database was created in the Azure portal. Now go to the Azure Data Studio. Azure Data Studio. This has to be downloaded, okay, into your system in order to use this application. Once you use this, so whatever the already existing customers, already existing servers need to be deleted. So as you have created two servers, that is MySQL and PostgreSQL. So that has to be installed here. That has to be installed here as an extensions. So to run the commands in the Azure Data Studio here, okay, in order to work with the MySQL and PostgreSQL databases, you have to install the MySQL and PostgreSQL in the Azure Data Studio. For that, go to the last option, that is extensions. Okay, so click on MySQL. Just search for MySQL. So we have to install this MySQL. Click here and click on install. So we have to install both. It was installed. Now in the same way, you have to install the PostgreSQL also. Search for the PostgreSQL. Click on this PostgreSQL and install it. Okay, both are installed. Both are installed, MySQL and Postgres. Now go to the connections. Go to the connections. If you go here, you can see in the install, these two are installed already. Okay, it will be visible here. Now go to the connections, which is the first option. We have to establish a connection between this Azure Data Studio, which I have opened, Azure Data Studio, and the Azure portal in the and the database which was created in the Azure portal. Okay. For that, in the Data Studio, click on New Connection. We have to enter some. We have to enter some commands. We have to enter some values. So connection type by default it is a selected Microsoft SQL Server. As I have installed MySQL and Postgres SQL, both two are also visible here. So I want to make a connection, establish a connection between MySQL and Azure SQL database, Azure Data Studio. Server name. What is the server name of MySQL? That can be obtained from, go to the Azure portal. Now, so click on the MySQL server. Click on the MySQL server which you have created. In the overview pane, you can see the server name here, right? This is the server name. KL test MySQL 1.mysql so on. So save this. Go to the Azure Studio again. Just paste here. Authentication type is a password. Give the username and password which you have given while creating the MySQL database. Okay. There I have given KL admin and the password. Okay. So I have given the username and the password. Now remaining thing you can leave it as this. Now select the database name as MySQL server group. No need to touch these things. Database is MySQL. Click on connect. Now it is going to establish a connection. See here, it is going to establish a connection with the MySQL server, with the MySQL server from the Azure Data Studio. Okay, a connection has been established. If you see here, this is a list of the things that was already visible here. See now, click on the databases. As there are no databases, it is not going to show anything. Now, if you want to create, now you have to go to the query editor, right? First of all, you have to create a database now. Now we're going to create a database now. So click on this new query. Click on this new query. Now I will create one database. Create database. The database name I want to give as sample MySQL DB. Okay. Click on run. It is going to create commands completed successfully. It is going to create one database that is with the name that is sample MySQL database, right? So if you see here, this is the sample MySQL database. So there will be no tables as I have created the database now. Now again, so go to the commands. Go to the commands. So I want to create a table called student and insert some data into it, right? So create table students with these fields. This field, just copy this. You can take any table with any number of columns of your choice. Okay. So I want to create a student table with the student ID, first name, last name, age, and so on. Okay. Can run. There is an error here. Access is denied because there's some issues are there. So for that, what you should do is, in such type of cases, what you should do is Go to the MySQL, go to the settings, networking. You have to add a firewall rule here. Okay, you have to add a firewall rule here. Let us say F1. Let us say F1. Starting IP address. Just copy this, the first one, paste here, and just change this the last digits as 0 here and 255 here. Okay, so means I have given a range. Any IP address that was generated within this range, that is 0 to 255, 0 to 255, that can be accepted by this Azure portal, right? Click on save. Once it get updated, then we can run the queries here. Successfully updated, right? Now go again. You have to refresh this. Okay. Once we add this firewall rule here, you have to establish a connection again. Just click on this disconnect and connect again. Okay. You have to provide the username and password and enter all the details. Now one table is created. One table is created with the name students, right? So insert some data into it. You can take any table of your choice, any simple table, not these many columns. Just where you're just doing some testing how to run these commands. Okay, insert some data into it. Commands completed successfully. There's a CRUD operations I am performing here in the Azure Data Studio. So just retrieve the values from this table that we have created. Okay. Okay. So this is the data that I have inserted into the database. 4 columns in the table name called student. Okay. So what I have done here, at first I have created MySQL database in the Azure portal. From the Azure Data Studio, I have established a connection. So I have done the CRUD operations, that is creation of the database, insert and the retrieving. You can also do the updation and deletion also. The same thing you can also do with the Postgres also. Okay. So for that, now we will connect with the Postgres. Click on new connection. Now this time I will select Postgres SQL server name. So to get the server name, so click on the Postgres SQL server. Now select the server name here, copy and paste here, and provide the username and password that you have given while creating this Postgres database. Okay. Okay. Select the Postgres server group, leave it as it is. Click on connect. Now see here. Here, if you see, this is the MySQL database connection, and the new connection I have established, that is Postgres SQL. Postgres SQL. When they click on the database, if you see here, by default, these are the databases created by the Postgres itself, right? You can create your own database. So you have to select this Postgres SQL. Click on new query. So okay, make sure to select this database. Otherwise, if you select this and just click on the new query, the new database will be created in the MySQL server. Okay, so make sure you click here, that is Postgres SQL database. Now click on the new query. Here also create a new one database here. Create database. sample Postgres DB. This is what I want to create here. Okay, one database was created now. Click on the refresh. See here, sample Postgres DB is created. I want to create a table and insert some data into it. So Postgres SQL. The MySQL and PostgreSQL both are same when coming to the syntax with a little difference. So we have to identify the difference while creating these tables. Okay. Just create here. I'm going to create one table with the students like how I have done in MySQL. One table was created. Okay. Click on here. Click here. Click on public and tables. It has to reflect. It will take some time. So one table is created. Now I am going to insert some data into it. Go to the Azure Data Studio. Just paste here. Run. Okay, inserted 4 rows. Now, what are the table that you have created? Just to retry it. Select students. Okay. So this is how the data that was inserted in the Postgres. Before I have done in the MySQL, the same thing I have performed the CRUD operations in the Postgres SQL. Okay. So our experiment says that only we have to create two open source databases in the Azure. Okay. And perform some CRUD operations on these two databases. As these two databases does not have a separate query editor in the portal, like how we have done in the Azure SQL, right? This two does not have a separate query editor in order to perform these CRUD operations. That's why we have installed this Azure Data Studio software application. From this, we have done these operations. Okay, these CRUD operations. So this is what our experiment says. So here what I have done is I have created the table in the database called Postgres. Okay. Instead of selecting this sample Postgres, if you drop down this drop down menu, I have to select this and I have to create this student table and all. But by default, it was selected Postgres. Inside this only, I have created the table and inserted the data. Right. That's why you can see the data, the table we have created students here. Okay. So you can by selecting from here from the drop down menu sample Postgres DB, you can do the same operations so that the table will be created under the sample Postgres database. Okay.